Sit back and enjoy an hour of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get started.
The first Oscar ever awarded in the Academy Awards for Best Actor was going to be won by Rin Tin Tin, a German shepherd who starred in many movies. However, considering the reputation of the awards could be affected if a dog received the prize in the first edition, they instead gave the Oscar to Emil Jannings. In 1925, a man named Victor Lustig managed to convince several businessmen that the Eiffel Tower was going to be dismantled as part of a government project. He took advantage of the misunderstanding to obtain money and then disappeared. The scam was eventually discovered, and he was arrested years later. Today, he is remembered as one of the most peculiar cases of historical fraud. The well-known restaurant Dunkin' Donuts, which recently removed the word donuts from its name to be simply Dunkin', reported in previous years that only 8% of its sales were donuts. Most of its revenue comes from coffee and beverages, similar to Starbucks. In 2012, a woman in France received her phone bill with an amount due of 11,721 billion euros, the equivalent of 6,000 times the gross domestic product of France. When she called the company to clarify her situation, she was told she had to pay it no matter what. It was only after insisting many times that they realized the mistake. The double face illusion occurs when the eyes and mouth of a person are duplicated in an image, creating discomfort for the viewer because it confuses the brain's face detection ability, something reinforced by millions of years of evolution. However, it was discovered that rotating the image removes this discomfort because when we see a face upside down, we cannot detect the features correctly, even when there are obvious changes. The eyes of octopuses are different from those of vertebrate animals because, although they look similar, they actually evolved independently. The difference is that their photoreceptor cells face the light. Their optical nerves pass behind their retina, meaning they do not have a blind spot. A Finnish tourist broke off part of the ear of one of the Moai statues on Easter Island to take it home, but he was detained by the authorities. This happened in 2008. Shortly after, the mayor of that place declared that this tourist deserved a punishment equal to what he did to the statue, but that did not happen, and the punishment ended up being only a public apology and a fine of $17,000. The galaxy M100 is so far from us, and its light takes so long to reach us, that if advanced beings lived there and could look at us with a super powerful telescope, they would see the time when the dinosaurs were going extinct. William Shakespeare, in addition to being one of the most renowned writers of all time, was also a businessman. He used to buy large quantities of seeds, grains, and cereals, and then sell them at high prices during shortages, but he stopped doing so when the government found out and prohibited it. It is 30 times more likely for a giraffe to be struck by lightning than a human. This number was calculated based on 5 documented cases between 1996 and 2010. And because there were only around 140,000 giraffes at that time, the probability was estimated at 0.003 lightning strikes per 1,000 giraffes per year, 30 times higher than the statistic for humans. According to scientific conclusions, there is a reason why dogs and cats walk in circles before lying down to sleep, and it is related to their ancestors in the wild. To survive, these animals positioned themselves with their noses facing the direction of the wind so they could detect potential predators in advance, and that is why they would turn around before resting. Even though the energy drink company Red Bull was founded in Austria, its history began in Thailand. In 1976, the drink Krating Dang was launched in Thailand and was especially popular among truck drivers who used it to stay awake longer. Shortly after, it was discovered by an Austrian entrepreneur who partnered with the Thai producers so it could finally be launched in Austria as Red Bull in 1987. A newly built stadium in Las Vegas called the Sphere has inside it the largest 16K high-resolution screen in the world. It also has directional spatial audio, meaning that one section of the audience can be listening to something completely different from another section. This is achieved thanks to the 164,000 speakers of different sizes installed throughout the venue. Even though movies portray velociraptors as skilled hunters that cooperate in groups to surround their prey, in reality, scientists say they did not have such cooperative behavior. They even fought among themselves to compete for a kill. Macadamia nuts are very dangerous for dogs because they contain a toxin that affects their nervous system, making them weak and causing difficulty walking, symptoms that can last for days. During the time of the Roman Empire, many of the mummies prepared in Egypt were accompanied by realistic portraits of the individuals painted on wooden panels. There are currently around 900 of these portraits that have survived to this day. In the 1980s, the Swedish Navy detected sounds they suspected were hostile Soviet submarines, which was causing diplomatic tensions until they realized the sounds were actually coming from gas released by fish living in the area. This research won a Nobel Prize. Some dogs look like they have eyebrows, and thanks to this, they appear more expressive. This is due to an evolutionary trait that has been favored by humans through selective breeding, resulting in better communication. In simple terms, we gave eyebrows to dogs. The activist Martin Luther King paid the hospital bill when the actress Julia Roberts was born in 1967 because her parents had an acting school in Atlanta and developed a friendship with King and his family. This school had no restrictions and accepted all students without discrimination. According to a 2006 study, prehistoric predators had excellent vision, surpassing current animals like ox. For example, Tyrannosaurus rex had eyesight 13 times sharper than humans, allowing them to detect their prey at a distance of approximately 4 miles. They had to compensate for those tiny arms somehow. The United States Patent Office has the authority to void any patent if they believe it threatens national security or poses a risk to economic stability. To this day, more than 5,000 patents have been prohibited. In the Olympic Games, the starting pistol used to signal the beginning of races gave an unfair advantage to the athlete closest to it due to the speed at which sound travels. Today, each lane has its own independent speaker. In the movie Batman Returns, Batman's suit does not have boots. Instead, it has a pair of modified Air Jordan 6 sneakers with the upper portion extended. Even the sole still has the silhouette logo of Michael Jordan. This was done for practicality and comfort while filming action scenes. In 2002, a publisher in China released a fake sequel to the Harry Potter books called Harry Potter and Bao Zulong, which was actually the text of The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, but modified. They changed the names of the characters to names from the Harry Potter universe. Workers at Disney World have an emergency evacuation procedure in which they hold hands to form a human barrier and walk toward the exit until all guests are safely outside. The most expensive white painting ever sold is Bridge by Robert Ryman. It sold for $20 million in 2015. White paintings like these aim to provoke those who look at them, encouraging viewers to express their own ideas instead of the painting expressing them. And I suppose the price aimed to do the same, provoke reactions from people. As part of an art installation in New York, some artists attempted to print all of English Wikipedia in 2015. They generated a PDF file with the 7,473 volumes required, but they only managed to print around 100 volumes with 700 pages each. They then created the exterior covers of another 1,980 volumes. This entire installation was meant to show the true scale of this website. The writer and philosopher Voltaire once detailed how he used a trick to win the French lottery in 1729. Together with a friend who was a mathematician, they calculated how many tickets were sold and compared that amount with the prize total, since there was a calculation error in the system. Buying a certain number of tickets allowed them to win more than 7 million francs, which at that time was truly a lot of money. The popular child actress of the first half of the 20th century, Shirley Temple, once went with her mother to a mall during Christmas when she was 6 years old, where Santa Claus approached her and asked for her autograph. According to an interview she gave to a newspaper in 1961, this made her begin to have doubts about the existence of Santa Claus. But hey, what if he really was the real one and simply wanted her autograph? In 1799, the French discovered the Rosetta Stone, a rock that had text engraved in 3 different languages: ancient Greek, Demotic script, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. It was part of the construction of an Ottoman fort in the town of Rashid in Egypt. This stela or monolith was key to deciphering ancient Egyptian writing for the first time. A neuroscientist from California named Bruce Bridgman did not have stereoscopic vision for the first 67 years of his life, meaning he could not perceive depth. This changed when he went to see the 2012 movie Hugo in 3D with his family. And when the movie began, he suddenly started perceiving in 3D like most people. After that, it remained as if his brain had permanently learned it. In India, there are bridges more than 500 years old that are made from trunks and living roots, which allow them to withstand very strong floods. And over time, they even grow stronger because they continue to grow. If planet Earth were compared to an apple, the Earth's crust would be equivalent only to the apple's skin. On Earth, the crust is only 1% of the total volume and has a depth of approximately 25 miles. The leaves of the moringa tree contain all essential amino acids, more iron than spinach, more calcium than milk, and more vitamin A than carrots. Even its seeds help purify water because they contain a coagulating protein that captures impurities. The cult film Napoleon Dynamite was made on a budget of $400,000. After it was shown at the Sundance Film Festival, Fox bought it for almost $5 million. When it was released in theaters, it earned $46 million, and finally, when it came out on DVD, sales totaled $130 million, so it can be considered a success. It was discovered that in places where lightning strikes the earth, more fungi tend to grow. It was once thought to be a myth, but it was proven. It is believed that electricity activates an enzyme that promotes their growth. And the first jeans were officially created in 1873 when the Levi Strauss Company received the patent that allowed them to add rivets to denim pants, making them more durable for the workers who wore them. Before filming The Big Bang Theory, the set designers went to see apartments used by students pursuing master's degrees or doctorates to observe how young scientists actually lived. They based an unaired pilot episode on this, which can still be found online. The show was accepted by the CBS network on the condition that they discard those sets and the cast's wardrobe and make everything more colorful because the executives considered it too depressing. In the 19th century, caviar was not seen as a luxury food. It was even given for free in bars like peanuts. But over time, it became one of the most expensive foods. Tests have been conducted on Stradivarius violins, which have sold for up to $20 million, and it was found that their sound does not differ significantly from that of a professionally built modern violin. Their value comes mainly from their status as collectible pieces. The actor Brian Blessed met the artist at a convention in 1948 when he was 12 years old, but he was not convinced that it was Picasso, so he went to ask him. In response, Picasso drew a dove of peace on a piece of paper. Even then, Brian was not convinced and threw the drawing on the floor. That drawing is now in a gallery and valued at more than £50 million. All Porsche cars start on the left side, Unlike most regular streetcars, this is due to their tradition as a racing brand, where drivers can save a fraction of a second by starting the car with their left hand while shifting gears with their right hand, something that is no longer necessary but remains as part of the design. Biologists discovered that birds that have adapted to urban life make different sounds, like a kind of bird rap. Unlike those that stayed in rural areas, city birds sing faster and with higher notes. A Chinese food company broke the record for the longest noodle in the world in 2017. It measured a little more than 9,842 feet long. To make it, 40 kilograms of flour and 26 liters of water were used. When finished, it was divided into 400 plates for the workers to eat. Martin Luther King Jr., leader of the civil rights movement during the 1960s in the United States, and known for his speeches before thousands of people, once, years earlier, received a grade of C in the subject of public speaking. That grade is equivalent to a 6 or 7, the minimum needed to pass. The production team of the series South Park saved all the original files of the first 176 episodes. This allowed them to reprocess them in widescreen and high definition. It is practically the only animated TV show from before the high definition era that can be found in this format without any modifications or digital touch-ups. The writer Charles Dickens grew up during the period known as the Little Ice Age, when temperatures worldwide were colder than normal, which caused snow during the first Christmases he experienced. This influenced the style of his works, such as A Christmas Carol, considered classics to this day. Edwin Land invented the instant camera after his 3-year-old daughter asked him why she could not see the photo that had just been taken of her. 1 hour later, he already had the idea for the patent. Soon after, he founded the Polaroid company. When you tell someone about a goal or something you plan to do, the brain releases chemical compounds that create satisfaction similar to what you feel when you actually achieve the goal. This reduces motivation, according to studies conducted on the subject. In 1969, an SR-71 Blackbird airplane worth $34 million came apart during a flight because of a blockage caused by a piece of electrical tape just a few centimeters long. To this day, it remains the fastest manned airplane ever in service, capable of reaching a speed of Mach 3, or approximately 2,300 miles per hour. In medieval castles, the circular staircases were built so that attackers would ascend turning to the right, which forced the hand holding their sword to be blocked by the inner curve, making movement difficult, while those at the top had more space to attack. The ban on taking photos inside the Sistine Chapel did not exist until 1994, when a renovation financed by a Japanese television company was completed in exchange for the exclusive rights to film there. After the 3 years of exclusivity ended, the Vatican decided to continue prohibiting photos to protect the artwork. The ship Knock Nevis, previously known as the Sea-Wise Giant, was the largest ship in the world. It measured 1,502 feet long, and because of its size, it could not pass through the Panama Canal or the English Channel. It was also considered the largest mobile object ever built by humans. It was dismantled in 2009. It is true that if you run in the rain, you can get less wet, but not because you avoid the raindrops, but because you reach shelter faster. This is not recommended because water also reduces friction on the ground, making it more likely to slip, and it is better to get wet than to fall. The drink gin and tonic was originally created by the British East India Company as a way for soldiers to take quinine, an alkaloid used to treat malaria. But since it had a very bitter taste, they added sugar, lime, water, and gin to make it taste better. That is how this popular mixture was born. Broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts are all the same plant species, but over the years, they have been selectively bred to modify their flavor and appearance, which now makes them look like entirely different kinds of vegetables. Theoretically, If you moved away from the sun at 99% the speed of light, you would still see sunlight passing beside you at the speed of light. This is according to the theory of relativity. The blackest color of all, vantablack, which absorbs almost all the light on its surface, cannot be purchased because it's not a pigment. It is actually made of carbon nanotubes with specialized processes. If it were sold, its price would be higher than that of gold or diamonds, but the company that developed it also created a cheaper and easier to apply version. The only way the BBC could record its own live programs in the 1950s was by pointing a film camera at a television while it was broadcasting. This was the only way to preserve live shows until videotapes were invented in 1959. For this reason, the only existing recording of the science fiction series The Quatermass Experiment has a real insect crawling across the screen in some scenes. Writer Stephen King mentioned that his recommended formula for any writer is that they should read and write for at least between 4 and 6 hours a day. If you do not have time for that, you cannot expect to be a great writer. According to his statements, his daily goal is 2,000 words, and he does not stop writing until he reaches it. King Eric of Pomerania, King of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden during the 15th century, became a pirate after he was removed from the throne. He later led a pirate attack against his enemies. The basketball player Kareem Abdul-Jabbar agreed to appear in the movie Airplane with the condition that his salary be raised to $35,000 because he had seen a Persian rug he liked that cost that amount. This movie also features Jonathan Banks, known for the role of Mike in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. The production of the movie Mad Max: Fury Road had to change filming locations because the desert in Australia, where they were going to shoot, disappeared overnight, since that season had more rain than usual, which caused vegetation to grow. So they decided to move to a desert in Namibia instead. The candy company Jelly Belly gathers the candies that do not pass quality control due to having different shapes and sells them at a lower price. The imperfect candies also became one of their most popular products. An English soldier named Hugh Trenchard was paralyzed after a battle in the Second Boer War in 1899. During his recovery in Switzerland, he became fond of bobsleigh, and shortly after, he had an accident. But instead of injuring himself further, it helped him regain movement in his legs, allowing him to walk again and later return to the war. Only a few similar cases have ever been recorded in history. When the series The Sopranos was airing, the producer once said that the FBI contacted him to tell him that real members of the mafia they were investigating at that time were paranoid because they thought one of them was telling stories to the creators of the show due to how similar it was to reality. Plants can sense the vibrations of water flowing beneath the ground. This was demonstrated by observing how roots tend to search for and grow toward pipes where water is flowing, even if the outside of the pipe is dry. According to a study, new bills trigger a subconscious desire to be saved. So people who have them tend to spend less or think more carefully before making purchases. Lungfish can remain out of the water for up to 4 years. This is because, in addition to gills, they have organs similar to lungs that allow them to breathe air. This helps them survive in rivers where water levels change. During long flights, airplane pilots also sleep. Larger airplanes have special compartments that open up and contain beds. These are also used by the flight crew. Philo Farnsworth, considered the creator of television, hated his invention for years because he did not believe it was something useful for society. His opinion finally changed when he watched the live broadcast of the moon landing in 1969 on TV. Bolivia is the country with the most official languages of all, with 37, Spanish, and 36 local languages. In contrast, Australia, Eritrea, Luxembourg, Sweden, and Tuvalu do not have an official language either nationally or in their subdivisions. Out of 2,600 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, only 17 are dedicated to fictional characters. Among them are Bugs Bunny, Godzilla, Kermit the Frog, Shrek, Mickey Mouse, The Simpsons, Snoopy, and the Chevrolet Suburban truck, which is the only object with a star. The first baby carriage was designed in 1733 by a landscape architect named William Kent. It was almost identical to the ones used today, with the main difference that it was made with an attachment so it could be pulled by a goat or a similarly sized animal so that wealthy people who could buy it would not get tired. A man named Barry Lilly made a promise to keep a whole canned chicken stored until his 50th wedding anniversary so he could eat it on that day. When the date arrived, he did keep his promise and ate the chicken, and he did not get sick. If you do not owe anything and your total net worth is at zero, you have more money than 25% of all people in the world. There are 2 billion people who have a negative net worth, meaning their debts exceed their assets and capital. Many statistics presented do not take this into account. The first Ferris wheel ever built was constructed in 1893 for the Chicago World's Fair. It had a height of 246 feet and was made specifically to compete with the Eiffel Tower in Paris. After building it, its creator went bankrupt. Canada does not have an exact date on which it obtained its independence from Great Britain. When the Supreme Court established a date, they decided that independence had been acquired between the signing of the Treaty of Versailles in 1919 and the Statute of Westminster in 1931. The B-47 aircraft of the mid-20th century had to perform very specific maneuvers when releasing their payload because of the enormous power of the equipment they used. These maneuvers were necessary to keep the aircraft at a safe distance. It was a time when military aviation developed advanced techniques to operate extremely powerful tools. The Black Card from American Express, considered the most exclusive card in the world, has a minimum annual cost of $10,000, and you must earn at least $1 million per year to have it. It includes some perks for its holders, such as exclusive airport lounges, among other things, but it is mainly used by people who simply want to show off their money. The car brand Skoda tests the horn in their cars for the European market a total of 150,000 times, but for the cars they sell in India, they test them 500,000 times. This is due to the extensive use of the horn in that country. According to a study, at the busiest intersections in Indian cities, a horn sounds every 3 seconds. Dogs have fewer taste buds than humans. We have 9,000 and dogs have 1,700. This makes dogs taste things less, so they are not bothered by foods with bad flavor or even spoiled foods. However, their sense of smell is much more developed than ours. The circle on the flag of Bangladesh is not placed in the center. It is closer to the side where the flagpole is attached. This was intentional, so when the flag is waving, it appears perfectly centered. There is a very large area in the center of South America where the magnetic field of planet Earth is weaker. This is known as the South Atlantic Anomaly. Space agencies have to adjust the speed of satellites that pass through that area. A blue whale, the largest animal in the world, can consume in a single bite the same number of calories an average human eats in 180 days. When bacteriologist Alexander Fleming accidentally discovered penicillin, the first antibiotic, he called it mold juice before changing the name to penicillin. He discovered it after leaving a petri dish in his laboratory and going on vacation. When he returned, he noticed how a liquid had formed around the mold that had killed all the bacteria. The Mangalitsa is a rare breed of domestic pig that has unusually curly hair on its body, similar to a sheep. It can have black, red, or blonde hair. There's an area in the middle of the Pacific Ocean where great white sharks gather, even though they are a coastal species. That place is not their habitat. There is no food there, and no one really knows why this behavior occurs, but studies are being conducted. The first tests done with penicillin were performed on mice. If they had been done on guinea pigs, the story would have been different because guinea pigs are allergic to it. During the funeral of United States President Andrew Jackson in 1845, his pet parrot began cursing when it got excited by the large crowd that had gathered. Jackson had taught it those words in previous years. They had to take it to another room because it would not stop. Walking on burning coals does not require intense meditation or supernatural powers. In reality, anyone can do it because hot coals are poor conductors of heat and will not burn the feet of someone who crosses quickly enough. But even so, you must consult an expert and follow safety measures to attempt something like that. The original Batmobile from the first Batman series of 1966 sold for $4,200,000. Only one was made, but afterward, countless replicas were created that sell for much less. It was recently discovered that the bowhead whale can live for more than 200 years. That means some of these whales alive today were already alive the day the novel Moby Dick was published, in which the characters spend their time chasing a whale, although in the novel, it is a sperm whale. During World War II, King Christian X of Denmark was one of the few leaders of an invaded country who refused to leave for his own safety. He even went for daily rides through the capital, Copenhagen, without guards to show that he was not afraid. There is a city in New Zealand called Rotorua that has a constant smell of rotten eggs in the air. This is due to the sulfur that comes from the swamp areas in the region, but there are residents and tourists because of the hot springs in the area. If NASA had continued receiving a budget similar to what they had during the Apollo missions, they already had a plan developed to achieve a manned mission to Mars in 1983, and before that, they were going to build a lunar base. But instead, the United States government focused on developing the Space Shuttle program. The American farmer Conrad Heyer is the earliest born person ever photographed. He was born in 1759 and participated in the American Revolutionary War under the command of George Washington. He posed for a daguerreotype photo at the age of 103 in 1852. For reference, Heyer was born 7 years before Mozart. Oil was first used as fuel in China more than 2,000 years ago. They had drilled wells and bamboo pipelines used for salt production by evaporating water. By the year 1000, it was already being used to heat homes and for lighting. It is possible to store large amounts of renewable energy indefinitely using a reversible hydroelectric power plant, which works like a giant battery where water is pumped up a hill and then released as needed, using the potential energy of the water created by gravity, converting it back into renewable energy at an efficiency of 80%. The golden circle on the shield of the flag of Portugal represents an armillary sphere, an instrument used as a model of the cosmos to determine the location of celestial bodies, used by navigators during the age of maritime discoveries. The work by the Italian artist Parmigianino, Self-Portrait in a Convex Mirror from 1524, could be considered the first selfie. He painted it with oil on wood while looking at himself in a mirror. What distinguishes it from other self-portraits is the distortion caused by the shape of the mirror. In Japan, a circle is used to indicate that an answer on a test is correct, and unlike most of the world, the checkmark symbol means the answer is incorrect, although an X is also used to indicate an error. That is why these symbols were used on console controllers to select or cancel. The actor Jackie Chan began his career as a stunt double in Bruce Lee's movies Fist of Fury and Enter the Dragon. In one of the scenes, Bruce Lee accidentally hit him in the face for real. After that, he promised Jackie he would invite him to work on more movies, but these were never made. In 2009, singer Lily Allen was offered 200,000 bitcoins as payment in exchange for a concert on the online platform Second Life. But the offer was rejected and she did not perform. If she had accepted, she would currently be a multimillionaire. The inventor Nikola Tesla hated pearls so much that he would not even speak to women who wore them. One day he even sent his secretary home because she was wearing a pearl necklace. The exact reason for this hatred is unknown, but it is believed to have been related to obsessive compulsive disorder. It is estimated that the Padmanabhaswamy Temple in India contains approximately $19 billion in pure gold and precious stones stored in chests and rooms. Some of these have not yet been opened, so their exact contents are unknown. It is estimated that more than half of all academic research or university theses that are produced are never read by the general population, only by the authors, the evaluators, and the editors of the publications. Night vision devices use the color green because humans can recognize more shades or tones of different brightness in green compared to any other color. Mozart's widow, Constance Mozart, later married a diplomat from Denmark, and together they wrote biographies of the famous composer that are still considered the most reliable today. Even though Mozart's grave is unmarked because he had no money when he died, the Danish diplomat's grave has an inscription that reads, "Here rests the husband of Mozart's widow." Once, the actor Charlie Chaplin, before becoming world famous, declared that cinema was only a passing fad and that what audiences truly wanted to see were real actors performing on stage, as they had done in theater for centuries. The country with the lowest percentage of population with obesity is Vietnam, with 2.1%, while the highest is Nauru, with 61%. George Lucas allowed members of the pop band NSYNC to make a cameo in the movie Star Wars Episode II at the special request of his daughters. These scenes were filmed, but were ultimately deleted in the final cut of the movie, and will probably never be released. The artist Jean-Michel Basquiat, also known as Samo, a leading figure of neo-expressionism, appeared in the music video for Blondie's Rapture before he became known. The singer Debbie Harry bought his first artwork for $200. To this day, his works have reached values of more than $100 million. The movie Blade Runner and several other science fiction films, including Minority Report, are based on short stories by the writer Philip K. Dick, who was one of the most important figures in the science fiction genre. Archaeologists found fossilized bread 14,000 years old at a site in Jordan, where a settlement of hunter-gatherers was established. This means bread existed before agriculture and may have been one of the main motivations for people to start farming. Olympic lifeguards, who are present at all swimming events, earn about $340 for the 20 days their services are required, and they usually do not have to do anything since Olympic swimmers tend to be very skilled. But the rules state that lifeguards must be watching at all times. The director of the 1983 movie Scarface, Oliver Stone, mentioned that the name of the main character, Tony Montana, was inspired by his favorite football player, quarterback Joe Montana, winner of 4 Super Bowls. The scene where Ralph, the character from The Simpsons, says, "I am in danger," which has become popular in memes, actually does not come from an episode of The Simpsons. It is from a 2014 episode of Family Guy where they do a crossover with The Simpsons. In 2004, in the Republic of Georgia, which is located on the border of Europe and Asia, 30,000 police officers, including almost all traffic officers, were fired due to corruption. After that, they built glass police stations to promote an image of transparency. Since then, the perception of corruption and trust in the police increased significantly in that country. Titanium is the 9th most abundant element on planet Earth. However, most of it is found in the core. Extracting this metal from the Earth's crust is very expensive, and processing it generates a very large amount of waste. That is why it's one of the most costly materials. Bananas in the ripening stage, or when they are ready to eat, have a blue glow under ultraviolet light. This happens when the chlorophyll they contain begins to break down, causing this reaction. It is the only fruit or plant in general with this characteristic. actress Kate Winslet broke the record for the longest time filmed underwater while shooting a scene for Avatar 2. Winslet held her breath for more than 7 minutes, surpassing the 6 minutes achieved by Tom Cruise while filming Mission Impossible: Rogue Nation. Knowing many decimal places of pi actually has no real use. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory uses up to 15 decimal places of pi for its interplanetary navigation missions. More than that is not necessary. Only 39 decimal places would be needed to calculate the spherical volume of the entire universe. If all the bacteria in the world were gathered and stacked on top of one another, they would extend a total of 10 billion light years. That means that in total, all these microbes, which on average measure 0.001 millimeters long, could circle the entire galaxy 20,000 times. In 2012, Taylor Swift held a public online vote to decide where she would perform, allowing schools to participate. Seeing this, users from the forum 4chan coordinated to manipulate the vote, and the winner was the Boston School for the Deaf. In the end, the singer did not perform there, but she sent them a check for $50,000. In old maps, cartographers often drew sea monsters and strange creatures. They did this to mark unexplored territories. It was a way of saying that if you go there, it is at your own risk. Beethoven's piano sonatas are known for being deeply emotional, which caused them to be misunderstood in their time because that style was not fashionable. There is only one sonata he wrote, number 25, opus 79 in G major, that has a happier and more rhythmic style, an experiment he carried out so people could see what he was capable of. To this day, it is one of the best-known pieces in that category. In the world of entertainment, people who wrote in medieval times are often shown using literal bird feathers to write on paper. And while real feathers were used, they were actually trimmed so they would not get in the way and were much simpler. Yellow cheese slices are not actually slices. When they are manufactured, they are placed on the plastic at a temperature that makes it malleable, as if it were a pouch, and the machine shapes and divides them. In most countries, they cannot legally be called cheese either. There is a species of squirrel known as the vampire squirrel. Its tail is proportionally the largest of any animal, being 30% larger than its own body. It's carnivorous, and legends say it eats animals larger than itself, which is why it received that nickname. An abandoned Walmart store in McAllen, Texas, was converted into a public library. At a little over 0.6 square miles, it became the largest single-story library in the United States. Japan has more than double the number of 7-Eleven stores than the United States, the country where the chain originated. There are 21,000 in Japan and 9,300 in the United States. In Tokyo alone, there are more than 1,200 locations, and they offer more product variety compared to stores in other countries. During peace negotiations between North Korea and South Korea, the two committees in charge tried to bring a larger flag to each meeting, as if it were a competition. Later, a special meeting had to be held to agree on flag sizes because they no longer fit in the room where they were meeting. The runner Usain Bolt ate 100 McNuggets a day for 10 days while he was at the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games. This was to ensure he would not get sick from unfamiliar food. If sealed properly, canned food can last indefinitely. Many people complete the paperwork needed to have their pets registered as emotional support animals, which allows them to bring them on airplanes and into areas where pets are normally not allowed. The color of ladybugs is not meant to attract attention. On the contrary, the red and black coloration in nature signals to predators that the animal is poisonous and not worth chasing. In addition to that, they also have a defense mechanism that releases a foul-smelling liquid that comes out of their knees. Front-loading washing machines use between 40 and 75% less water and between 30 and 85% less electricity than traditional top-loading washing machines. The planet Neptune has the strongest winds in the solar system. It was discovered that it can have gusts of up to 1,304 miles per hour. People who eat slowly are 42% less likely to be overweight or obese. Even those who eat at a normal speed have 29% less risk of being overweight. This is according to a study from Kyushu University in Japan. This happens because the brain takes about 20 minutes to register that we have eaten enough. If the Statue of Liberty were melted down, the resulting metal would be worth less than a single apartment in New York. The statue contains around 68,000 pounds of copper and 275,000 pounds of steel, with a total value of $227,600. A vehicle was designed to travel underground in the same way that a submarine travels through water, called a subterrane. It worked with a drill tip hot enough to melt rock and carve a tunnel. Since it required too much power, it was planned to run on nuclear energy. However, it was never built. In 2013, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook and later Meta, purchased a total of $30 million worth of the 4 neighboring houses surrounding his property. He did this to ensure his safety and privacy. Meat that is vacuum sealed has a slightly purple coloration, but since people would find it strange and not buy it at the supermarket, it undergoes a treatment of carbon monoxide and other compounds, so it maintains the red color. Identical twins have different fingerprints. This difference is due to external factors unrelated to genetics, such as the position of the fetus during development or the growth rate of the fingers. Therefore, your evil twin cannot blame you for anything they do. There is an island near Venice, Italy, called Poveglia, which is considered haunted and therefore known as the Island of Ghosts. It is currently uninhabited, but in the past, it was used as a fort, a quarantine station, a hospital, and a mental asylum. There is a website called Brickset that contains a database of all Lego pieces and sets ever made. This exists to help people obtain replacements if they lose pieces or for any type of reference. Chevrolet offered an option for buyers of the Corvette Z06 called Build Your Own Engine. For $5,000 extra, you could go to the factory and assist a technician in assembling your car's engine, and then they would attach a plaque with your name on it. They no longer offer this because it slowed down production too much. In an episode of Futurama, a device is pointed at Bender to see his interior, revealing that he uses a 6502 chip, which is actually a microprocessor designed in 1975 that was used in the first Apple computers. Dover Castle, the largest castle in England, has more than 3 miles of secret escape tunnels that were used during wartime to escape or access the structure. Many of these tunnels have still not been discovered. Dragons that have only 2 legs are actually called wyverns, and they are also distinguished by having a pointed tail that was said to be poisonous. In ancient times, it was more common to depict dragons in this form, and today they are popular in emblem designs for places, brands, and organizations. In the late 80s, McDonald's began selling McPizza as part of the menu, but it was discontinued because the wait times while it was prepared were too long, which went against the concept of fast food. Currently, only one McDonald's restaurant in the world still sells pizza officially. It is the branch located in Orlando, Florida, which happens to be the largest McDonald's in the world. The heavy metal band Iron Maiden sued the developers of a video game called Iron Maiden for $2 million because of the similarity in their names. They eventually reached an agreement, and the video game changed its name to Ion Fury. One of the grotesques on the Washington National Cathedral, which are traditionally gargoyles used to drain water from the roofs, is shaped like Darth Vader. This Star Wars character was the result of a children's competition where kids drew designs they wanted for the sculptures while the Northwest Tower was being constructed. The richest man in the country of Georgia, Bidzina Ivanishvili, lives in a multi-million-dollar house made mainly of glass and metal called The Glass Castle. The entire city of Tbilisi can be seen from the upper floor. While watching the movie Stuart Little in 2009, Hungarian art historian Gergely Barkay recognized the painting Sleeping Lady with a Black Vase by Robert Barony, which had been missing for more than 90 years. It was in the background of a scene as set decoration. In 2014, the painting was sold at auction for $85,000. There is a tunnel in Switzerland where a roadway also serves as a potential nuclear bomb shelter. Its construction was completed in 1976, and at that time it was the largest shelter in the world. However, over the years, it stopped serving that primary function, and now, in addition to being a road, it can be visited as a museum. Tires have an expiration date, which is generally 6 years after their manufacture. This means they deteriorate even if they are never used. To know when they expire, they have a code on the inner wall. The last 4 digits indicate the week and the year in which they were manufactured. One of Spotify's founders, Daniel Ek, was the manager of uTorrent during 2006, a peer-to-peer file-sharing software used mainly to share digital content. This experience helped him develop knowledge that he later applied in creating the streaming service. The atomic clocks on GPS satellites are programmed to compensate for time dilation that occurs according to the theory of relativity. If this small adjustment were not made, GPS devices would be off by approximately 6 miles after some time. 10,000 years ago, lions were the most numerous mammals on Earth after humans. They lived in Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Americas. But little by little, their numbers declined. A man named Chris Clark bought the internet domain pizza.com in 1994 for $20. And each year, he spent another $20 to renew it. Until, in 2018, he decided to put it up for sale in an auction. He eventually sold it for $2,600,000. At the summit of Everest, there are marine sedimentary rocks that, according to geologists, were at the bottom of the sea 450 million years ago. But over time, and with the movement of tectonic plates, were pushed upward until reaching one of the highest points in the world. In most movies featuring space battles, when a ship explodes, there is a fireball as if it occurred on Earth. But in reality, space is a vacuum, so there is no oxygen to serve as fuel for the explosion. In real life, such an explosion would appear only as a very brief flash. Phyllis Smith, who played the character Phyllis on the series The Office, did not audition for her role. She was actually working in the casting office selecting actors. But after observing her, the director offered her a role on the show. The sports drink brand created by YouTubers KSI and Logan Paul, Prime, had total sales of $250 million in 2022. There were even viral videos showing product shortages in stores like Walmart and people fighting to buy the last units on the shelves. Belgium went 652 days without a government from 2018 to 2020, which is a record for a modern country. This was possible because its regions are autonomous enough, and during that time, they only used an interim government to mediate and handle international matters. According to a study, children reported that products with cartoon characters on the wrappers and boxes tasted better compared to those without them, even though the product was exactly the same in both cases. The only times Elvis Presley performed outside the United States were in 3 Canadian cities near the border. According to statements from people close to him, he was afraid of flying. Recorded music audio levels have gradually increased since the 1990s to make it stand out more. This is done by reducing the dynamic range, which raises the volume in the quieter parts but cuts frequencies in the highest peaks, resulting in the loss of sound quality. When Eminem's daughter, Haley, was crowned homecoming queen at her school stadium, the rapper hid in an empty room and watched everything through the window because he did not want to take the attention away from her. After the Temple of Artemis was burned in ancient times by a person seeking notoriety, The authorities determined that his name should never be mentioned again as a way to prevent others from attempting similar acts for attention. The only two countries in the world that do not have laws allowing any form of divorce are the Philippines and the Vatican. In all other countries recognized by the United Nations, divorce is allowed. Since 2012, the United States Air Force has trained more drone pilots than fighter jet pilots and pilots of regular manned aircraft. There is a lake in Virginia, United States, called Mount Storm, which serves as a coolant for a coal power plant. This makes its temperature always high, ideal for swimming even on days with below freezing weather. The country of Samoa once skipped an entire day. On December 31st of 2011, they went from the 30th to the 1st of January. This occurred because they officially changed time zones to the other side of the international dateline, which required them to jump forward 24 hours. During the marketing campaign for the first Tomb Raider games, two music albums by Lara Croft were released with lyrics in English, but they were only sold in France. The vocalist was the actress Rona Mitra, who at that time portrayed this character. Today, they are considered collector's items. Cats are 95.6% tiger. These two animals share a common ancestor that lived 10 million years ago, which is why they share most of their genetic code. This can also be seen in behaviors of domestic cats that tigers also exhibit, such as marking territory and stalking their prey with a jump. 17,000 divorce cases in Egypt mention the mobile game Candy Crush as one of the causes, according to a 2014 report. Part of this statistic also mentions that the PlayStation is the video game console that caused the most divorces in that country, with 250,000. Skunks, whose scent glands have been removed, can be excellent pets, similar to ferrets. They're very docile and can even learn tricks and respond when called by name. The currency of the African country Botswana is called the pula, which in the Tswana language means rain. It was named this because water is very scarce and precious in that place. This currency was introduced in 1976, replacing the South African rand. Keanu Reeves was very skilled as an ice hockey goalie, and his dream was to compete professionally for Canada, but an injury ended his hopes, and he instead focused on becoming an actor and bassist. There's a mountain of common table salt in Germany made from leftover material from the chemical company K+S. It measures 820 feet high and contains around 200 million tons of salt. It is affectionately called Mount Kali or Kilimanjaro, referencing Africa's highest peak, Mount Kilimanjaro. It is considered a source of pollution for the region, but the company has a permit to deposit salt there until the year 2030. Coca-Cola released a soda called OK Soda in 1993 in order to have two products with the most recognized words in the world. However, it was not successful, although the word OK remains the most recognized word globally, followed by Coca-Cola or Coke. If you place 100 million atoms in a row, they would reach a length equivalent to the width of your little finger. In the diameter of a human hair, 800,000 atoms can fit in a row. There is a clown museum in the United Kingdom where they have 250 eggs painted with the faces of different clowns as a way to protect the intellectual property of their makeup. A study was conducted to understand how young children learn language, and it was discovered that speaking to them directly produced far better results than having them listen to people talking on television. The popular Pez dispensers and compressed candies were invented in 1927 as mints intended to help people quit smoking. The first dispenser came out in 1949. A bank robber once covered his face with lemon juice because he believed it would interfere with security cameras and make him invisible. Of course, he was arrested. This incident led to a psychological study at Cornell University, explaining how people with low abilities tend to see themselves as more capable than they really are. The song Plastic Love by the Japanese singer Maria Takeuchi, which in recent years became very popular on the internet with hundreds of millions of plays, actually did not receive a good reception when it was originally released in 1985, as it only reached number 84 on the popularity charts in Japan compared to her other hits. The Aztecs fought with a weapon called a macuahuitl, a wooden sword with pieces of obsidian, a volcanic glass, embedded along the sides, making it strong enough to cut and injure even more than an iron sword. As part of an experiment, the Japanese astronaut Koichi Wakata wore the same underwear for 1 month on the International Space Station. This underwear was made with special antibacterial materials so it could be used for a long time, even if he exercised every day. A light blinking at the top of the Capitol Records Tower in Los Angeles spells the word Hollywood in Morse code continuously since the building's opening in 1956. The reason traditional Asian building roofs curve at the corners is to allow more sunlight to enter through the windows during the winter and to provide more shade during the summer. In the last 500 years, the volcanoes in Iceland have expelled 1/3 of all the lava that has reached the surface of the Earth. It is the region with the most consistently active volcanoes. For part of the 19th century, aluminum was considered more valuable than gold because it was more difficult to obtain. The French government even displayed bars of aluminum alongside the crown jewels, and Napoleon III had a set of aluminum cutlery that he used only on special occasions for distinguished guests. The director Stanley Kubrick destroyed all the sets and models used in the movie 2001, A Space Odyssey. He did this to prevent a sequel from ever being made. And at least so far, he succeeded. The giant checks given when awarding prizes are also accepted by banks. However, they may charge an extra fee for the service because it takes longer to verify and handle than a regular-sized check. Pistachios tend to spontaneously catch fire when there are many of them together. The lack of liquid, combined with their natural oil, heat, and even friction from their shells, is perfect for starting flames. If a domesticated pig is released into the wild, within a few months, it will grow tusks, more hair, and become more aggressive, returning to its natural state. It was calculated that $21 billion in gift cards have been lost in the United States due to people not redeeming them and the balance expiring.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.